Mr. Godfrey Sوليفان, Managing Director and Partner for the Boston Consulting Group. You are welcome at أولاً الاقتصاد والأعمال. Boston Consulting Group has issued lately a report about global payments. It discussed payments mainly in the GCC countries. And the report expected a minor growth or even a drop in payment revenues in the coming 4 years compared to the last 4 years. What is the reason behind this stagnant situation, do you think?
Well, thank you, Rania, for having us in the discussion today. As you said, our recent BCG Global Payments Report outlines a moderate growth in payments overall in the coming 5 years. And that's very much reflected of the economic uncertainty resulting from the current pandemic, as well as the knock-on effects on the price of oil. And payments and the evolution of payment revenues for the banking sector is very much linked to that broader economic uncertainty. And in that context, we see, based on the 3 different scenarios that we've outlined, a flat or moderate growth over the coming 4 years. However, that does mask a real shift in payments. So what we are seeing is a big move from cash-based payments to digital payments. So whereas the total payment revenue will only experience a moderate growth, we are seeing already a dramatic acceleration of digital payments. And I think that's the key story here.
Okay. It's true that coronavirus pandemic has led to an economic recession and affected oil prices and the tourism sector severely. But don't you think that the adoption of digital transformation gave the economies a big boost?
Absolutely. The shift towards digital is having a very positive impact on certain segments of the economy. And I think what we're seeing is a 2-speed kind of emergence out of the pandemic, where those organizations which have strong digital capabilities or have been building them are really capitalizing on the shift in customer behavior, and those businesses which either as a result of their business model or their digital capabilities are facing more challenging times. So I think you're absolutely right that there are some areas which are growing and will continue to grow and take advantage of these new ways in which customers are conducting themselves.
Okay, how do you evaluate the fintech sector in GCC countries, mainly in Saudi Arabia and in UAE, post this pandemic? And how do you think the new financial solutions provided by these fintech companies will boost the economies in the Gulf region? Especially, we have seen that there is a large growth in this sector in both countries, in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf country and UAE.
I think this is a very interesting question, and you're right that there is a lot of discussion on fintechs and how these are impacting the countries. I think it's important to take a step back, and from a BCG point of view, the financial services arena is still dominated by the incumbent banks. This is who we're all banking with, we all have our accounts with, and people don't change their banking behavior very dramatically. There are an increasing number of fintechs which are entering the market in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. The model that we at BCG see as evolving is that they will predominantly partner with existing financial institutions and complement the offerings of those. There will be some standalone fintechs which get a degree of traction, However, I think the predominant model is that they will partner with the big financial services institutions. And in that respect, I think the sector in both Saudi and the UAE is growing. However, it is still small, and its overall economic impact, the number of people that it will employ, will continue to be small to moderate over the coming years.
Okay, do you think the fintech sector will affect the payment revenues positively?
In terms of the overall volume of payments, the driver of payment revenues for banks is the broader economic environment. This is the main driver. I think fintechs will accelerate, in some respects, the shift from digital, from cash payments to digital payments. And I think Saudi Arabia is a good example. You see organizations like STC Pay, Halala to a degree, coming in and having a meaningful impact on the behavior of customers and the shift to digital payments. So I think you're going to continue to see that shift. Will it grow the overall pie? It will be a moderate factor, but the real shift is in the shift from cash to digital payments.
Okay, how do you think the economies in the Gulf will recover, and will traditional companies survive, or adopting digital transformation will be a must or become necessary?
So clearly it's a very challenging situation in the Gulf. We have not only the restrictions on as a result from COVID, which obviously impacts tourism, business travel, etc., but also the consequent knock-on on oil prices, and we saw that again, how that was impacted by the second wave we're seeing globally. So it is clearly going to be a challenging 12 months. In the region. I think from an overall perspective, the digital challengers, the digital players will do relatively well, and I think the established players will increasingly shift, and are already shifting, to a model where they try and capitalize on these new ways of interacting with their customers. And those that don't will really struggle. I think we're going to see a lot of the more traditional businesses really struggling. I think there'll be a significant number of businesses that kind of cease to operate. But on the other side, there will be those which capitalize on this, reinvent themselves, and do very well.
Okay, as you mentioned, the market is witnessing a lot of startups or entrepreneurs who are stepping into this business. Do you think this sector will attract international investors or venture capitalists to invest in this sector?
Specifically in the fintech sector, there is interest from investors in the region, in the fintech space. It's seen as a very interesting space for many of the venture capital firms in the region. I think when you look globally, it is a challenge for the GCC versus these much larger markets, and India is a good example next door. Just the scale of opportunity is less is smaller in the GCC. I think Saudi Arabia has certainly some interesting opportunities, but this will certainly be helped by the increasing openness of regulators, both the CBUAE and SAMA, as well as other regional regulators, are very much in the mode of encouraging fintechs to set up here. And I think that opening up, which is very commendable, will result in more opportunities for venture capital firms. Will we see fintechs in the region get to the unicorn valuations we see in the US and Europe and these other locations? Probably not. And to do that, they would have to kind of expand geographically beyond just the GCC, I would say.
And do you think we have the skills and the competence to work in this sector?
So I think in the region, there's a tremendous amount of talent. There's very very innovative thinkers who are coming up with very innovative ideas. I think what the countries lack is the tech talent, the developers, the coders that are very important part of making these digital fintech startups successful. Where you look at where they have been particularly successful, there is a real large body of programmers and coders who are thinking about what customer problems to solve. I think the proportion that you find in the Middle East is much lower than in other geographies. I think that's going to be a very important constraint in terms of the type of talent. I think in that respect, it will probably be a while before we stop importing real volumes of programmers and data scientists and AI experts which are important in driving the evolution of these sectors.
Okay, finally, what are the main challenges that will face the payment sector in the coming years, and what are the key or the main solutions to overcome these challenges?
I think the overall kind of economic environment will be a constraining factor on many industries, including payments. I think in many respects, payments is an exciting place to be, particularly if you're in the side of the digital payment. So I think those firms which are able to effectively harness customers' increased usage of online channels, of contactless payments, will really do very well. And in that respect, I think although the overall market growth, as I said, is flat to moderate, depending on our different BCG scenarios, the opportunity to capture this shift to digital payments is really very exciting.
Okay, yeah, as you know, in Saudi Arabia's 2030 vision, one of the targets is reaching cashless society. Do you think that with what's happening now, Saudi Arabia will be able to reach this target?
I think in Vision 2030, and it's a hotly debated topic, I don't think the actual target is a cashless society in Vision 2030. I think there is a desire to move to less cash transactions. And I think that's an important distinction, because many countries around the world are saying, well, actually, cash is an important component for certain segments of this of society, the elderly, people who are less familiar with digital payments. I think there's lots of benefits of moving towards less cash. And in that respect, I think Saudi is doing a fantastic job. They're beating many of the targets that were set to do that. I think it is still an interesting question as to whether a country, and no country in the world has completely removed cash. It's an interesting question as to what are some of the broader ramifications of that, particularly around the segments which have a degree of familiarity with holding cash.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Godfrey, for giving us this opportunity, and thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rania. A pleasure to be here and to speak to you today.